Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 5 tonight. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
It's good to have you here. I'm Whitney Ward. Despite a deadline set by the city of Spokane, that homeless camp near I-90 in Freya will not be cleared out anytime soon. This is after state officials fired back at the city today with a strongly worded letter, essentially accusing the city and the mayor of playing politics.
The joint letter was from the Department of Transportation, the Commerce Department, and WSP, and it highlights where they say the city is falling short and they are passing the buck, they claim. In that letter, it is clear the state and the city are not on the same page when it comes to clearing out that homeless camp.
So in fact, the state is calling the city's timeline to clear out that camp irrational. And listen to this. It also states the city, starting with the mayor, they said, is more preoccupied by optics than action. So here are the top 3 things you need to know tonight about the state's response.
Starting first up, what the state points out that the quick removal of the homeless camp contradicts the right-of-way safety initiative, which requires local governments to work with WSDOT and Commerce to transition people living on state-owned property to safer and more permanent housing. They write, quote, "The city's deadlines imply clearing the encampment, which will simply force the most vulnerable to relocate to other city, county, state, and private property within the area." The letter continues that following the city's demands solves nothing, and finding common ground with the state is what makes sense and what is also legally required.
Second, the letter also asserts that the city's too focused on being reimbursed by the state for $350,000 in expenses if they don't clear the homeless encampment by the city's deadline. They say the city has, quote, lost sight of the other $24 million the state invested to address homelessness in Spokane. And given that, the state says it will not entertain any reimbursement discussions right now.
So what's next? Well, the state writes that it wants to partner with the city to work together to resolve the challenges associated with Camp Hope, writing, quote, "We know from successful approaches elsewhere in the state that working together with responsible local jurisdictions is an essential ingredient to the work to provide safe, secure housing and service solutions for those living homeless." If you'd like to read that full 3-page letter from WSDOT, you can find that on our website. Just head to KREM.com. You can also text us the word letter to 509-448-2000, and we'll send that link directly to your phone.
And continuing our team coverage on this topic tonight, that letter placed a lot of the responsibility for the camp's continued growth at the feet of the city.
KREM 2's Janelle Finch is digging deeper tonight. We were the first to speak with Mayor Nadine Woodward this afternoon about her reaction and where the city goes from here. Janelle?
3 state agencies are taking aim at the city and Mayor Nadine Woodward, calling out a lack of responsibility when considering Spokane's homeless crisis. Today, I sat down with Mayor Woodward and she tells me the city has been putting in the work for what it can do within its means. For the last 10 months, Spokane has watched the homeless encampment near I-90 in Freya grow from tens to hundreds of campers. And in that time, Mayor Nadine Woodward says keeping up with the camp has fallen back on the city, even though it's on land that isn't even theirs.
We've stepped up to do what I believe the state should have been doing on their own property from day one.
Tuesday, in a letter addressed to the city, WSDOT, the Department of Commerce, and State Patrol claim Spokane has lacked accountability, both in owning its contributions to its homeless crisis and failure to create long-term and meaningful solutions. Mayor Woodward says it's the state's lack of action that has contributed to the growth of the encampment.
It started as an orchestrated protest and was allowed to grow because WSDOT wouldn't do anything about activity on their own property.
And in the state's absence, she says Spokane has taken on the financial burden of supporting the camp and surrounding area.
We've spent nearly $400,000 at the city for removal of trash, for private security, and police overtime at 12 hours every single day. And that's not something that we want to, that we don't feel we should have to continue to pay. That is an issue that is happening on their property, not the city's property, and that responsibility really should be in their hands.
The mayor says since her time in office, homelessness has been an important issue. She said she's been proud of the city's collaboration on the Way Out, Cannon, and most recently, Trent shelters as a means to address the growing crisis.
A ton of work has gone into all of those for the last 2.5 years. So I'm proud of what we've been able to do at the city with our regional partners.
Still, at last count, over 600 people are living out of their tents and RVs at this encampment, with no indication that they will be moved in the immediate future. The mayor says she already had a meeting scheduled for WSDOT tomorrow. She says they plan to discuss expectations on how to best move people off the land and into housing. However, now following the release of this letter, she says its contents will also be discussed at tomorrow's meeting. In the studio, Janelle Finch, KREM 2 News.